What's up, gamers? Hope you're all having an absolutely wonderful day with a 100% totally positive outlook on the future of gaming, just like me. Once this video comes out, I may not be able to stream or make videos as much in the near future. Maybe. We'll see. I'll be looking for a new job soon. Hopefully Monday Night Smash will not need to be changed and I'll try to accommodate for that, but no promises. Other than that, I want to do the last 2024 RNG live, where we go over the news stories, talk about our favorite games of the year, and pick a worst take of the year maybe. If you guys are interested in that, let me know in the comments. Also, my next project is going to be a top 10 video game music covers, so if you have anything that you think is good enough to make the top 10, feel free to send it my way. We'll have a few more streams going over more of them before I make it, but other than that, I actually do have a lot of long-term plans for the channel, but that will have to be in a separate video that was supposed to come out in October. Man, I suck at this. Anyway, let's get on with it to the main topics. Now, we don't exactly have a lot of big stories to go over this time, but this first one is one that is going under the radar quite a bit, but I think it's extremely important and people need to pay attention because this is something that can have severe ramifications to not just the gaming industry, but many other aspects of our lives. If you are a connoisseur of cultured Japanese content, you may already be aware of this, but various forces are out to try and censor products from Japan, including foreign politicians, the fucking United Nations for some reason, and the topic for this video, payment processors. Yes, payment processors such as Visa and MasterCard. They think they should have the authority to tell you what you can and cannot do with your money for political or moral reasons. This story came out because a company called Manga Library Z announced they will be shutting down. Basically, Manga Library Z was an archive of old out-of-print manga that you could no longer buy. And you would think that something like this would have shut down due to legal or copyright issues, but no. It was actually harassed by international credit card companies and payment processors putting pressure on them to censor their content. All of which is 100% legal to distribute in Japan, by the way. Why are these companies sticking their noses into transactions that are legal? Where this ties into gaming is that one of the biggest game sites that continually gets pressure from these companies is DL Site, which generally features adult/hentai games for sale. This also sparked a response from Yoko Taro, the most based and talented creator in the mainstream industry in my opinion, who says this is dangerous to democracy and jeopardizes freedom of expression. And I think that's true. If these companies can control what you can and cannot put in your content, then they have de facto control over your speech and expression. And that becomes doubly problematic if these giant companies are in bed with the government. They should not be allowed to do this, and more people need to know about it, so there you go. Next, we have a bunch of Nintendo news, including a continuation of their litigation sprees, such as an update on the Pocket Pair lawsuit. They demand a total of 10 million yen for damages, which is $66,000. That's nothing to them. Really, this is just an attempt to get Palworld shut down. The money is not their goal here. Also, all of these patent infringements cited are all from 2024, well after Palworld came out. In any court system with common sense, these cases would be thrown out immediately. But government agencies tend to not operate on common sense, so we'll see what happens. The next lawsuit was one against a streamer. A very insane streamer who streams unreleased emulated Switch games on his channels. Yes, channels with an S, because they keep getting taken down. Like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? Unlike some of their other lawsuits, Nintendo probably should win this one. Then there was an update on the Ryujinx case, and it seems the creator of the emulator reached some sort of agreement with Nintendo, and now Nintendo owns Ryujinx entirely, I guess. Look, if you're a fan of emulation, I'd suggest keeping it on the down low from here on out, especially if you're emulating Nintendo Switch games, even ones you own. Things are getting dicey out here, and I think it may be related to some of those weird laws Japan has about modifying game hardware and all that. Just know your limits. Another bit of interesting Nintendo news, Nintendo will apparently be pulling out of China by 2026, which will end their 2019 relations with Tencent that allowed them to sell over there. They haven't announced why they are shutting down services in China yet, so I'll keep you updated if I can, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was the result of low sales due to the nature of China's very mobile and PC-heavy market. The only other big news story of the month was the Game Awards. Honestly, this was more about the massive drama that this shit show causes every year rather than the actual nominees themselves. First, they decided to conveniently revise the rules for this year specifically for some reason, and there are various conspiracy theories about that, such as the fact that this is a very mid-year compared to previous years like 2023, at least in the mainstream eye. So now they will nominate DLC, expansions, remakes, and remasters for Game of the Year, which included Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the latter of which I think is fine to nominate since it's so radically different from the original, even though the game looks insufferably mid to me, but oh well. So a lot of people are complaining about that, and some think this was an attempt to shove Stellar Blade and Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 off the running, since those games were loved by the people who played them but hated by the establishment. I don't know if I buy into that personally, but, you know, if that ends up being true, I wouldn't be surprised either, since this whole thing is directed by the establishment anyway. Your little 10% vote doesn't matter at the end of the day. They also won't tell us who the jury is for these nominations, which is sus. Despite the alleged attempt to rig the Game of the Year nomination, one game still managed to get in there that the establishment really hates, Black Myth Wukong, which resulted in a flurry of articles from game journalists complaining that it shouldn't be there on account of being the, quote, lowest rated Game of the Year nominee to date, based on OpenCritic, I think. Sincerely, fuck all of you hacks. You don't speak for the gaming audience. There is one more little drama involving the Game Awards, and it's related to a video I made back in July. They filed for trademark of the term Game Awards, and this article by That Park Place is the only one I could find on this story, and I tend to not like using them as a source, but here we are. Why are they doing that now, rather than, I don't know, any time during the past decade this damn show has been running? Seems a bit sus, doesn't it? And I really hope they are unable to trademark something as generic as Game Awards, but we've seen weirder shit happen, I guess. Anyway, there is another little award show that's supposed to happen called the Real Game Awards. Yeah, this name sucks major monkey ass, but still. Is Jeff feeling a little threatened by this shitty show run by some guy on the internet? Honestly, it would be funny if he was. I will not be watching the Game Awards live on the channel. I'll probably tune into someone else tearing at a new asshole like I normally do every year. But I might do that for the Real Game Awards just to see how this thing goes down. Let me know in the comments if you'd be interested in something like that. Oh yeah, meanwhile, another award show called the Golden Joysticks went down last month. By comparison, there's very little criticism over the awards and nominees because it seems much more accurate to the actual gaming community in 2024. Though if you ask me, these awards are still completely illegitimate due to cutting off 2 months of the year just like the Game Awards does, so fuck them too. Seriously, you corpo industry shills. January, at the earliest. I don't give a singular fuck about these awards unless this happens. Now, the rest of the stories I got here are fairly short. Stalker 2, Heart of Chernobyl was probably the biggest highlight release, came out despite being made by a Ukrainian studio that relocated from a war zone, and even lost one of the devs to the war a while back, so shout out to them. This game sold over 1 million copies in the first few days, with a ton more playing it on Xbox Game Pass, though it has been plagued by glitches and poor performance in pure Eurojank fashion. Most people who are familiar with the first game expected this, but there are a lot of, people of a PlayStation persuasion who are really salty over the game because it was not released on their platform, being funded by Xbox and all. I don't know why. This sounds like a lead-in to the worst take of the month, but no, we got something far worse than typical deranged pony behavior this time, so hold on to your butts. Private Division was sold by Take-Two to... we don't know. Seems sus, but if you don't know who Private Division is, they were a quote-unquote indie publisher who published smaller scale games and indie games, known for games such as Kerbal Space Program, The Outer Worlds, After Us, No Rest for the Wicked, and more. But apparently that's not good enough for a shitty company like Take-Two, who sold it based off the fact that their successes were not big enough. Gotta have all the money after all. Sega, out of nowhere, are delisting a ton of classic games, mainly from Steam and Xbox, but also the Sega Genesis Classics game on all systems. Good thing I have a physical copy because fuck you, Sega. Many of these games will still be playable on Nintendo Switch Online, so you don't have to worry about that if you use it. But this still sucks. My suggestion is not to go out and buy them before they're gone, just find alternate means to play them if you really want them. Warner Bros. Reports yet another $100 million lost in their gaming sector, apparently due to multiverses. After the abysmal Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League earlier this year, this company has been hemorrhaging money like crazy, and it wouldn't surprise me to see them scale back operations next year as a result. Ubisoft. Yes, Ubisoft is in the news again. They are being sued over shutting down The Crew earlier this year. Allegedly, this violates some consumer protection law in California, so some gamers are putting together a class action lawsuit against them. Given what I said about Ubisoft in the last RNG video, I have zero sympathy for them. I hope they continue to take L's until they go away. Tequila Works files for insolvency due to market conditions, meaning they can no longer pay off its debts and will probably shut down in the near future. Unfortunate. This studio is best known for the 2017 game Rime, which I liked quite a bit, and also Guilt and Song of Nunu, a League of Legends story, so it sucks to see them go. Another game company was sold off by Embracer Group recently, and it's one you've probably never heard of. They're called Easy Brain, and I want you to guess how much they were sold off for. Got a number in mind? Well, see how close you were to $1.2 billion, because that's how much they were divested for. Yeah, insane. Surprise, surprise, this company makes mobile games for normies. They're no king, but it's still a shit ton of money. PlayStation trophy hunter Hakum has his account stolen and sold by a rogue PlayStation employee. This guy was apparently the most accomplished trophy hunter in the world, and this whole ordeal caused him to go full boycott against Sony because they would not get his account back to him despite all the evidence of fraud. So, for one, fuck you, Sony, and two, guys, don't trophy hunt. These things mean nothing and are just a ploy to suck money out of you on one storefront, and they can be taken from you at any time. Just play the games you enjoy. In fact, turn achievements off if you can and ignore them entirely. It'll save you time and headaches, and maybe help you find out if you actually like video games as a medium in the first place. Bethesda employees go on strike. For like one day. Yeah, that'll show them. Apparently, Bethesda wants to outsource its quality assurance work, which doesn't bode well for the future of Bugthesda, does it? Although, their games come out quite buggy anyway, so maybe the outsourced QA would do better. They also did this in protest of changing work-from-home policies, which makes sense, I guess. I don't know. This just seemed weird for them to strike for one day, then go back the next day, but what do I know? Valve has released new rules for games releasing DLC for their games on Steam. The TLDR is that these rules are supposed to curtail deceptive practices and unfulfilled promises, such as intentional repeated delays to keep people on edge. Rumors are that Homeworld 3 is one of the games responsible for this reaction out of Valve, but I'm more curious to see how it will affect games going forward, and if it winds up penalizing developers. I wonder how that will play out. Sony is in talks to buying Kadokawa. If you don't know who Kadokawa is, they are a major publisher in Japan who publish lots of anime and manga, and also games. Apparently, these talks happened as a result of a potential hostile takeover of Kadokawa by a different Korean company. Many people talking about this are using From Software, who is majority owned by Kadokawa, as the main talking point, but this has much more to do with the anime and manga industry, and could bring Sony very close to having a monopoly of that industry, especially in the West. They already own Crunchyroll, Funimation, and many other Western anime publishers, so this could end up being very, very bad. Of course, the PlayStation fanboys are cheering for this to happen and being very short-sighted, as expected. But hey, if it gets them their precious Bloodborne 2, then I guess it's worth making an entire other industry worse, right? On a related note, time for Last Month in Localization. And we don't really have all that much to talk about here, especially this first story, which should be taken with a major grain of salt. There was a game Nintendo put out recently called Emio, the Smiling Man, and apparently in this interview with the producers, they were told by their Western branch to tone down their jokes that are crude or vulgar. So Nintendo's Western branch wants to censor Japanese games at the source, rather than just localizing them improperly like they usually do. Isn't that great? This other story is only very tangentially related to localization, that being the physical editions of Record of Lodoss War, Deedlit, and Wonder Labyrinth, great game by the way, were reprinted by Red Art Games, but they were forced to change the cover art, covering up this character's cleavage. Why? Apparently this was a demand by the fucking ESRB. Why are they doing this? This isn't their job. So don't send any hate towards the publisher, this isn't their fault. But fuck the ESRB. They've been unfit for cause for a long time. Now, finally, on to the worst take of the month. And without wasting anyone's time, it's the ADL. Yes, the Anti-Defamation League, once again coming out in full force to try to exert their will over other people because that's all they do. This time they have their sights set on Steam, and are calling them out for fostering hate communities or some shit. and allowing far-right extremism and stuff on their platform.
Oh shit, here we go again.
As with everything that ADL does, there's always some sort of half-truth or lie by omission that needs to be taken into account whenever you read one of their fake news reports. I don't remember where I saw it, but apparently all of this right-wing hate accounts for 0.3% of all the millions of accounts on Steam. Or was it 0.03%? I can't remember. Either way, we're talking about a fraction of a percent here. This is not an issue. Oh, and to make it even less of an issue, do you want to know what the #1 hate symbol or expression of hate on Steam was that they recorded? Pepe memes. Yeah, so if even all of the other expressions are legit, we're once again talking about a fraction of a percent. A fraction of a fraction of a percent at that. And by shining a light on them like this, you're probably giving them more clout and relevancy.
If you're looking for the guilty, you need only look into a mirror.
Oh, and apparently US Senator Mark Warner fell for it, and thinks this should be addressed in the public sphere. So fuck him too. Corrupt, dishonest piece of trash pro-censorship politician. I'm sorry guys, I hate getting political on this channel, but it keeps invading my favorite hobby, and I'm not for it. I want these corrupt politicians, bureaucrats, and international tyrants out of here.
Your life is nothing. You serve zero purpose. You should kill yourself now.
Alright, now that that's over, we did have a couple of showcases. The Czech and Slovak Direct on November 11th, and the Mix Fall Showcase on November 21st. Links in the description, as always. Now, onto the releases. If you want a place where I list every game I featured on this, as well as any other game featured on the channel, feel free to follow my Steam Curator, link in the description. First, I'll go over a handful of games I missed from the past few months, starting with Yarimono on August 30th, a creature battler RPG like Pokemon. Hopefully Nintendo won't sue this one, but this one has a little twist of the, adult variety. But you will need an external patch for that if you get the Steam version. Goodnight Pan Pan on September 6th, a cyberpunk survival horror game inspired by Cantonese culture set in Hong Kong. Fighting for Singleship, I am chased by a bunch of women but I just want to play video games on September 11th. Based, and totally relatable. It's a silly action roguelite. Stream game, maybe. Mouthwashing on September 26th, a retro-inspired first-person psychological horror game that's been making the rounds quite a bit and people seem to really love it. Extra Coin on October 8th, a story-based adventure game about a parallel digital world with a few minigames and stuff. Speedollama on October 21st, llamas vs alpacas in a crazy animal violence 2D shooter platformer. Goodboy Galaxy on October 25th, another 2D shooter platformer about a doggo going into space that was designed for the Game Boy Advance. Just be aware that the companies selling the physical versions are doing so without consent from the developers, so don't buy that. Just wait, or get it on Steam or the GBA ROM on itch.io. Now for November releases. First we have Farmagia, which, as you'd expect, is one of those farming simulator RPGs. Unfortunately, not many fans of this one aside from the art style as of now. Munch on November 4th, a naughty, violent action roguelite where you are the monster villain and have to destroy and eat your enemies to get stronger. Metal Slug Tactics on November 5th, a long-awaited Metal Slug spin-off tactics game. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to have been worth the wait based on the reviews, but some people like it. Run From Mummies on November 5th, what it says on the tin. Dungeon crawler where you are treasure hunting and keeping away from the undead in the pyramids. Ark of Charon on November 6th, a 2D city builder simulator where you build atop the back of a giant wandering creature and arm it for combat as well. Mirthwood on November 6th, a sandbox action RPG with plenty of crafting mechanics and stuff. Planet Coaster 2 on November 6th, a follow-up to the acclaimed Roller Coaster Tycoon successor, this time with water parks. Finally. And de nouveau again. River City Saga 3 Kingdoms Next on November 6th, a strange spin-off crossover of the River City series with the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, and apparently this is the second one. Empire of the Ants on November 7th, a real-time strategy and colony sim game based on ants. Swarm your enemies and conquer their nests for the queen. Home Zero on November 7th, a hidden object psychological horror game where you are trapped in a memory. Put those observational skills to the test to escape. Magical Bakery on November 7th, a game where you run a magical bakery to sell magical fruity sweets to the silly fantasy customers. Make sure you get Fantasy Karen's order right. Sengoku Dynasty came out of early access on November 7th. If you've seen me play that medieval dynasty game, this is basically that, but in Japan. First-person town building and management RPG. Tectonica came out of early access on November 7th, another factory automation sim game similar to Factorio and Satisfactory. Late to the party, but welcome. Looks fun. Graveyard Gunslingers on November 8th, a top-down action roguelite shooter of cowboys versus zombies. Slitterhead on November 8th, an action game with horror elements. Hunt down the brain-slurping Slitterheads in a dark city while jumping from one body to the next. Two Falls on November 8th, a story-based exploration game set in the 17th century Canadian wilderness. This game has a lot of industry awards prior to release, so take that as you will. Zephon on November 8th, a 4X sci-fi strategy game combining dystopian futures with eldritch horrors for a bizarre, oppressive experience. Everholm on November 11th, a cute little casual RPG with farming sim elements. Yay! Tilt Frog on November 11th, one of those brutally difficult gimmick platformers that exists just to troll the fuck out of you when you fail and fall a long way down. Farming Simulator 25 on November 12th. Do I need to explain what this is? Also, the 25 is for the year, not the 25th game. In Sync, a co-op escape adventure on November 12th, an escape room simulator thingy where you try to escape a desert island and do it with a friend.
Hey, phrasing!
Neo Harbor Rescue Squad on November 12th, a mostly visual novel style game with mini-games around doing emergency medical operations. Time Trekker came out of early access on November 12th, yet another action roguelite, but this time with combat mechs. Do you guys have enough roguelites yet? Beyblade X Zone on November 13th. Now you can battle Beyblades with your friends without ruining your mom's bathtub. Isn't technology great? I Am Future Cozy Apocalypse Survival came out of early access on November 13th. Enjoy the apocalypse hipster style in this sandbox survival game. Debut Project Cooking Cafe on November 13th. A very simple cooking game that is probably overpriced, but hey, it's cute at least. Songs of Silence came out of early access on November 13th, an auto-battler strategy game, just in case you hate interaction or something. Divine Dynamo Flamefrit on November 14th, a top-down action game inspired by some of the classics, as well as 90s shonen anime. Dragon Quest III HD 2D on November 14th. You probably already have it if you know about it. I talked about it last month. Beaten with the censorship stick. Also, de novo. Little Big Adventure Twinson's Quest on November 14th, a 3D isometric puzzle and action game. Is it little or is it big? Either way, it's a remake of a PS1 game I never heard of until now. Petite Island on November 14th, a casual exploration game where you play as a nerdy little cat girl reliving her grandpa's memories. Sorry We're Closed on November 14th, a fabulous first-person survival horror and shooter game with all sorts of strange set pieces. Queer even. Ved on November 14th, a turn-based RPG with hand-drawn graphics and roguelite elements. Project Shoreline on November 15th, a game about cleaning up some dirty beaches. Oh, also, it's free. Go get it. Subverse came out of early access on November 15th. Yes, that Subverse has finally launched. This game is very 18+ and very much for acquired taste, so know what you're getting into. Cloudy Valley on November 18th, another casual exploration game. Were you expecting more of a description? No, I'm trying to half-ass this segment, come on. Forgotten but Unbroken on November 18th, a World War II turn-based military tactics game. Think you can take me? Don't forget me. Sears Gambit on November 18th, an auto-battler roguelite. Yes, another one. I don't want to hear it unless you've played all of them. Papa's Pizzeria Deluxe on November 19th, a casual pizza shop simulator that kinda looks like a Flash game or a cheap mobile game, but hey, people seem to like it. Toads of the Bayou on November 19th. You thought it would be something interesting about Toads, but it was me, another turn-based roguelite game with deck building. Gakuen Makio High School Crisis on November 20th, a first-person dungeon crawly RPG about demons in high school. Where have I heard of this before? Luma Island on November 20th, another farming sim RPG, but also with mining, so I would probably like it more, just saying. Stalker 2 on November 20th. We talked about it earlier. Just be aware it's still buggy and shit. The Devil Within Sagat on November 20th. Your Souls-like of the month. This one being another Soulsvania style game. Alaloth Champions of the Four Kingdoms came out of early access on November 21st. An action RPG like Diablo inspired by Dark Souls and Baldur's Gate. Surely this fills a niche out there. ICBM Escalation on November 21st. A minimalist RTS game about worldwide modern warfare.
Try to take over the world.
Strinova on November 21st. It's Overwatch, but anime. Probably better to avoid it. But if you need your hero shooter fix for some reason, there's an alternative. Dokimon Quest on November 22nd. A creature battler RPG inspired by the Game Boy Color era. Nintendo, look the other way. Spiritmancer on November 22nd. A 2D hack-and-slash game with deck building mechanics. The bane of my existence. At least the art style is good. Toaster Side on November 22nd. Definitely a meme game. Swing your toaster into an unsuspecting person's bath. You know what happens next. Virtual Interactive Fireplace on November 24th. Yeah, this is not really a game, but it's free, so what have you got to lose? Neon Blood on November 25th. A cyberpunk adventure game with turn-based battles. A bit mixed as of now. Void Crew came out of early access on November 25th. Yes, another roguelite, but this time a space sim where you can operate, battle, and upgrade your spaceship as well as explore outside and other places with up to 4 players. Sounds ambitious for a party game. Billy Saves the World on November 26th, a 2D platformer about a guy who is transported to another planet out of nowhere after his girlfriend breaks up with him. A silly isekai story, perhaps? Critter Cafe on November 26th, another management and life sim with exploration and creature rescuing to add charm to your little cafe. Make those animals useful, eh? Renaissance Kingdom Wars came out of early access on November 26th, a blend of RTS and grand strategy set in the year 1510. Who needs enlightenment when you have force? Snow Bros Wonderland on November 28th, a 3D puzzle platformer revival of an old franchise after 3 whole decades. How about that? Wand Project on November 29th. Yes, we're wrapping this up with another action roguelite shooter, this time with waifus. Would you expect any less from this segment? And there you have it, folks, another batch of games for you to look up and help you avoid the mainstream slop for years to come. As I mentioned earlier, let me know in the comments if you guys are interested in doing the New Year's RNG live on stream rather than in a video. Don't forget to check out my other content if you haven't yet, such as past RNGs, or my top 10s like my recent top 10 moments of The Legend of Zelda. I stream every Monday and host a public Smash Bros. Arena to show off my totally professional skills with the game. Don't forget to leave a like if you liked the video or a dislike if you support the ADL. Leave a comment on what you think of any of these news stories, or if you decided to pick up any of these games in the release list. Subscribe if you want to see more mid content. Share the video around to anyone you think may be interested. Follow my Steam curator to keep up with all the games I cover. Follow me on the X Twitter if you want zero interaction. Catch my videos on Rumble or Odyssey if you want. And as always with this dire dookie of an industry, have high standards, low expectations.